good evening. This is your man's, the man about town, Petty Murphy, reporting to you live from the back of the classroom with Alcata News Network. What is that? Wait a minute. Stay tuned. Breaking news.
By 81%. Houston, Texas, 45%. Philadelphia, 50%. The impact of this new buying force is so tremendous that actually in 14 major United States markets, a product cannot be number one without Negro support. A product must have the backing of this big new buying power to be a leader in the field. What do you have to sell? Chewing gum or cars? Toothpaste or transportation? Whatever it is, here are millions of prospects. And these prospects are everywhere. Negro customers can no longer be pigeonholed. They cannot be classified as prospects who trade only in certain stores, certain neighborhoods. Today, Negroes shop downtown. They shop in supermarkets. They shop in small neighborhood stores. They'll buy from anyone who wants to sell to them. But we all know that before you can sell to customers, you've got to get to know them. You must understand something about them. What do the Negro customers buy? Why do they buy? How do you sell to them? Let's find out. Let's hear the opinion of men who have spent a lifetime studying the buying habits of customers the world over. Here is what sales psychologists have to say about selling to the Negro.
The secret of selling to the Negro is expressed in one word. That word is recognition. Now, there's nothing unusual about that. People want to be recognized. They need recognition. That's basic in all of us. But perhaps because he's had so little of it, the Negro needs even more. He needs to feel important and appreciated. This need is a very real and important one. It shows up even in many of the Negro's shopping habits. Anyone who sells or wants to sell to the Negro customer should know about some of these habits. 3 habits in particular play a big part in every sales transaction. To begin with, most Negroes buy by brand. They ask for products by name. They're quick to turn down off-brands. Do you wonder why? Well, listen to what this customer is thinking.
That last hat I bought just didn't hold up at all.
You see, for a long time, the Negro has been sold a lot of shoddy, second-class merchandise. So now he asks for name brands in order to make sure he gets his money's worth. Buying by brand, that's the first important Negro buying habit. Now for the second. The Negro buys good quality merchandise. Symbols of quality and prestige are very important to the Negro customer. This woman, for example, is buying fine crystalware. But she is also buying the admiration and approval of her friends and relatives. Listen to her thoughts.
My, isn't it beautiful? I can hardly wait to show it to Sally and Joan.
It's a well-known fact that many Negro customers are influenced by the opinions of others. What their friends may think of a certain item often decides whether or not the sale is made. So remember, the Negro buys quality merchandise. That's the second important point. And here's the third thing to remember when selling to a Negro customer. When he specifically asks for one thing, don't try to sell him something else. Don't try to switch him at the point of sale. If you do, he'll probably react something like this.
Doesn't he think I've got the money to pay for it?
There's a reason for this reaction. Again, because he's had experience with cheap merchandise, the Negro resents being offered a substitute. He wants to be sold on quality, not price. The Negro buys by brand, he buys quality, and he doesn't like to be switched at point of sale. These are the keys to selling the Negro customer. Another point. The Negro family does things together, as a group. The family works as a unit. It lives as a unit, and it buys as a unit. When you sell to one member, you many times sell to all. It's also true that many places of entertainment are still closed to the Negro. So he spends more of his money for the things that are available to him, often for items that are considered luxuries. Another trait of the Negro market is the fact that it is a pre-sold market. We know that the Negro buys by brand, and he buys the brands that he knows something about. Where does the Negro buyer get this information? We know that Negro customers are turning more and more to the publications that are tailored specifically to their needs, that give them the news and the information that they want to read about. Many leading businessmen and companies already know this. That's why so many of them are taking this direct, sure route of reaching the Negro customer. The vice president of advertising of the Gruen Watch Company, for example, says this.
In many important cities throughout the United States, Negroes are important customers of the credit jeweler. Therefore, it seemed that Ebony magazine would be a very important advertising medium for us. We would say it was very well received, and from our viewpoint, a very successful campaign.
From the Remington Rand Company comes this statement.
Our records show that advertising in Ebony has been effective in many ways. As all good advertising should, it has built a terrific amount of goodwill and has brought a volume of sales and sales inquiries.
As an African woman, I'd like to say that I am so sorry to the Black Americans, because you guys have been fighting. You guys have been fighting for your lives against racism, known and unknown. People didn't want you to vote. People didn't want you to learn. People didn't want you to have a solid life.
And particularly to apologize deeply on behalf of the chiefs and people of Gold Coast and Ghana for the atrocities, the cruelty, the inhuman treatment that were committed 400 years ago by my ancestors during the Atlantic slave trade.
First is finally here. My dear fellow Africans, this is what I expected from most of you that own your own personal businesses. I expected majority of you to step out to plead Black Americans, to plead with the FBA, Foundational Black Americans, to talk to them, to ask for forgiveness in whichever way you must have wronged these people. But you choose to stay quiet. But we are out here. We are out here watching. I mean, what do you guys really think that other races are going to be thinking about us? Okay. What do we really not think? Instead of us uniting ourselves, instead of us working together, growing stronger, having one voice, we are here tearing ourselves together here on social media, tearing ourselves apart here on social media.
Foundational Black American.
Yeah.
What is that about? Because I feel like that's pure division, if I'm not going to.
It is. But I get it. I don't agree with it, but I get it. This is what it is. There were too many black people from outside Africa, from outside America, going to America and playing the arse. And what it is African Americans spotted this and spotted that there's a consistent pattern. Black Caribbeans, black people from Africa going to America and being the arse. And what the FBA agenda is putting up a wall and saying, no, you guys can't be a part of this if you're going to be on that, raccoon train.
When you say playing the arse, what? Because from what I know, a lot of Africans, a lot of Caribbeans who go there, academically, they're surpassing them. And also business-wise, they're surpassing them. So who was playing the arse?
when they then use that to say, well, that means that you African Americans are lazy. Do you see?
Yes.
And then being on some right-wing conservatism, let's throw African Americans under the bus.
That is true.
And let's pretend that Jim Crow didn't happen, redlining didn't happen, breaking up of African American business districts, breaking up of African American families. The COINTELPRO didn't happen. The Iran Contras and then moving drugs into the black community didn't happen. Yeah. And there's a whole list of things continuing right up until now that the American government has done to African Americans. And so for those black people recently arrived from outside America, you all didn't face any of that. So of course you're going to be doing better than African Americans. Duh.
Yeah. But not all of them can be affected by this. There's always got to be certain people who rise above it, regardless of what the situation is. It's just the natural nature thing. Weeds grow through gardens, you name it. Mm-hmm. Why do you think it is that a country like Jamaica or Africa, where they too have had their deprivations, had their colonialism, had their slavery, why do they go somewhere and tend to excel amongst people who also have gone through it?
Because you're not comparing like with like. That's why.
Okay.
A lot of us think we are comparing like with like. You're not. Let me explain. Generally speaking, Caribbeans in America, not the ones in the Caribbean, but the ones in America, will represent the top 10%.
I see.
So if you're really going to compare like with like, you have to compare the top 10% of Caribbeans with the top 10% of African Americans.
Okay.
And when you compare the two, the African Americans are slaughtering us, bro. It's not even close. It's a massacre. But what it is we compare the top 10% with your average African American. You're not comparing like with like. And if you compare your average African American, you're 51, you got 1 to 100 and Mr. number 51. Number 51 is richer by a factor of 20 than your average Jamaican.
Yo, what's cracking? How everybody doing today? So at the very beginning of the collage that I put together, what you actually saw was in a documentary that was commissioned by the United States Department of Commerce somewhere around about maybe 1954, 1955. Don't quote me on that, but you can actually find that exact documentary on YouTube. It's called How to Sell to a Negro. And basically what you had was a government entity, the United States of America Corporation, actually commissioned a study on Black Americans. And what they found out was our buying habits, our spending habits, and for what reason we do these things. And basically what they did is they just shared it with different vendors and corporations all over the world. But I say that to say all of this. If you see what's happening now in our communities, and you see how now a lot of individuals are deciding to make apologies to what's been going on since 1965, and how the whole interaction between the two, or should I say multitude of groups, has been happening. All of the lies, misinformation, and propaganda that's been spread throughout the whole diaspora in reference to us being products of adultery and one-night stands and not knowing who our fathers are, again, according to the imams in temples in Minnesota, correct? So, again, if you really pay attention, if you ever notice that there are certain demographics that control certain industries within your community, like you can pretty much guarantee when you go to the beauty supply store who's going to own it or be behind the counter. And you can pretty much put that to pretty much every industry across the board in every major metropolitan area in the United States of America. But again, I blame this on us because we're the ones that elect these public servants. Some of them that now we see happen to be foreign nationals who still identify with their countries of origin. And then, as we've already seen what's happening now with Ilhan Omar and her whole crew in Minneapolis and in Minnesota as a whole, how much of that money's been actually funneled and trickled, allegedly, of course, to a few terroristic organizations that they all have ties to, which has been documented and proven. So if it's happening there, my question is how many cities is it happening in? And how long have we been used to fight for this agenda when it doesn't service us? Because they've already said outright, they will do nothing to help the Black Americans. This is why they continue to vote against reparations. So my question to us is why do we continue to allow it? Why do we allow these things in our communities? Why do we give these people the actual footholding to even be able to push this propaganda about us and control the narrative about our people in our own communities? I implore you to please go watch that How to Sell the Negro, because it stated in the 1950s, 3 out of every 4 Black households owned their homes in the land it was on. You see, we were generating so much GDP back then that it had to be studied. And if you look now, and you can look this up, if you actually look up the GDP of the most prosperous nation in Africa, it's South Africa at around $400 billion a year. But then if you look up the GDP just from Black Americans alone, it's in the trillions. So we don't need help from anybody. We just have to wake up and start helping ourselves. Stop helping and fighting for everyone else for things that go against our own best interests, like illegal immigration, right? Aid to foreign nations, aid to immigrant minority groups that they only qualify for and we can't even qualify for. If you really think about it, right? Put yourself on the flip side of that. Imagine if you pay taxes as an American citizen and belong to none of these groups. And then you hear people talking about, which rightfully so, what about reparations that was promised that was never paid? But all they can see is all the money that's going to APAC, that's going to Africa, the Middle East, South America, and everywhere else. All to people who, because we have similar skin tone, are compared to us but are not us. And here we are in the same country as founding members of this country, because, you know, according to the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment, we were written into the fabric of the Constitution, which means at the inception of this current form of government, of the Corporation of the United States of America, we were here in the foundation of that. So this was not built by immigrants. It was rightfully built by our ancestors. And these are other narratives that we have to stop from floating, because at some point, it's going to become the truth. And that's our responsibility. We can't blame anyone else for that except for us. And we've allowed it for far too long. It's now time for us to collectively make our voices heard and stand on business. We already know why they hold the seats that they hold in these elected political positions, and we now know what they're doing. It's time for us to do as they've done. Invest in our own community, invest in the youth of our community, and as a collective, we vote for these individuals and put them in the seats of power so that we can get our just due and get it up out the mud like we've been doing. It's time for us to reclaim what we lost, because make no mistake about it, you can yourself go look through the history books and see what we had before integration and what happened after. And this is just basically a new form of neo-colonialism, and we are the mark. But you know, if we say that part out loud, you might ruffle some feathers, but I'm okay with that. If I can get people to see what's really happening and just read the room, maybe we'll all collectively start making different decisions, making better decisions that benefit us and not everyone else outside of this land, because we listen to the propaganda that's being pushed by a psyop from places like APAC and the like. But yeah, y'all be safe out there. Remember, realize, realize, realize. Transparency forces accountability. Y'all keep your eyes to the stars and keep that head on a swivel. Y'all be safe.